Welcome to Go Play Esports Podcast with Christopher Turner, Go Play founder and CEO, esports coach at the Southern University Lab, and gamer. Discussions on the emergence of esports at the K-12, collegiate, and professional level. Let's go! Let's go play.
Hi, welcome to the show. This is another podcast of Go Play Esports. This is your host, Christopher Turner. Today's guest has 10 years of experience in the esports industry. He has aided professional development students, interns, and postgraduates. These students have received esports scholarships, employment, and acclaimed university and esports organizations like Central Missouri University, Mavs Gaming, and Mavs Gaming. He is also the co-founder and CEO of Geekletes, an organization that aims to provide support in the greater Texas area, whether it's competitive gaming or career opportunity. Without further ado, I've been wanting him on the show for quite a while now. Let's not waste any more time. Welcome Danny Morton to the show.
Thank you for it, man. It's a great opportunity. I'm loving your progress. I'm loving what you're doing. You're helping give individuals opportunity to show their stories. That's everything what esports is about. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I don't even know if you remember, but we met in Dallas.
I do.
And yeah, chopped it up for a second, and that trip from a teacher standpoint was icing on the cake for me. I just brought my administration down so they can see what esports was all about, and they've been on board ever since, man. So it's been a pleasure doing so. And before we get to it, man, so I'm a Baton Rouge guy, Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
I was a truck driver in my previous life. So we have a connection. I stayed in Duncanville. Okay. I got my hair cut in the cliff. I know about Rudy's Chicken.
Oh yeah, look at you! Like I was like, man. Oh snap! You said Duncanville, and you said Rudy's. Yeah. I was just like, what? Like okay.
Yeah, man. I got my hair cut in the cliff.
Stadium?
Nah, man. So man,
you never know.
You never know, man. So I did a brief introduction, man. Tell the listening audience a little bit more in depth about yourself.
Oh man. For me, I identified that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur early on. Just growing up in Oak Cliff, right? That's just, you have to have a hustle living in there, in that geographic location. So I just grew up being with my uncles, and whether they, a lot of them didn't have the opportunity to go to a normal job. They, especially from a prison or like just to have it, they have the opportunity. So they were cutting yards, selling barbecue. We were just doing like during high school. For me, I was just always with them. So I couldn't wait to get out of class and be with them because that's where the fun was. And we would be up late into the morning hours, selling barbecue and cutting yards, and so it was like that was my time to be with grown folks in high school, and they taught me entrepreneurship. They were the one that taught me the name entrepreneur, what it was, and just when you are growing up in an area and people are giving you game, you take on that game, and you're like, man, I want to do this. Just like if they said, hey, you want to go to the NBA or you're going to be an NBA star, you take in that. You're like, man, I'm going to go be an NBA star. And that's how impressionable I was. So going to college, I knew I wanted to go to college to be an entrepreneur. Didn't know what it was, and until I was an athlete in college, and my teammates were playing games, and their game broke. And so at that moment, we were trying to figure out how to fix the console. You take it to Microsoft, or you try to figure out a way to fix it yourself. And so we figured that out, and ultimately once figuring that out, it opened my mind to the components of video gaming. And so I started just fixing individuals' consoles on campus. So I was able to, learn a lot of content from there. Like I took a lot of data, like who plays what, how they play, when they play, what games they play. And, I was able to host tournaments. with that data. You know, if somebody gave me their console to fix, whether it was the red rings or whether the disc wouldn't come out or whatever it may be, I was able to see who played what and say, all right, well, you're a Madden player. If I wanted to market you and do a Madden tournament, I knew who to go to. And that was my introduction to gaming. And I started recognizing, like, in order for you to want to, enter into tournaments, you have to find an event coordinator, quote unquote, a tournament organizer. And if there's not a lot of people being a tournament organizer, then, it's less opportunities for the gamer. And I started to figure out, like, why was that the case? Why aren't there a lot of tournament organizers? And I recognized, like, most tournament organizers are young, too. This is a business. You have to have a brand, and you have to put some money in it. And I started to realize, like, well, everybody don't have the opportunity to get data like I had, so I need to teach individuals. And I did quickly recognize that when you teach an individual, you only have so many hours in the day to teach somebody how to host a tournament. And so I was just like, man, if there was a software platform that could be created, then it would make it easier. And that's the time when you started hearing Airbnb and Uber and things like that. And so ultimately in my head, I was just like, man, I got to figure out how to build. I don't know software development. It seems like foreign language. But I threw myself in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and I learned from some of the best individuals who started large tech companies, and that was my time to really learn, software and also coupled it with the hardware that I learned in college. So I ultimately was just like, esports is it. I love competitive gaming. I'm around gaming all the time. My younger brother, is around gaming. He lived with me in my college dorms and took him to San Francisco, so he was always around gaming. So I just was like, man, there's a lot of kids that are going to grow up that's going to want to learn how to be able to be a professional gamer or be in the industry of esports in some type of capacity. No different than the traditional realm where you don't make it to the NBA, then you may be a coach or you may be a facilitator of some sort. And I knew that was going to exist in esports. So I just wanted to be ahead of the curve as much as I could. Granted, you have the larger organizations like Flexi and 100D, all of them that's been in there. They're like legends inside of this industry. I was just like, well, I can get in there. It shouldn't stop me from being able to be in there and build a company just like those entities out there. And granted, we still have a long way to go, but that's the journey in which we're at right now. So ultimately, we've helped several players go pro. We've helped individuals, like you stated earlier in the intro. We've seen individuals come inside of Geekletes and take their skill sets, and now they're traveling around the country and the world showcasing their skills in production and management and things like that. So that's something that we really want to focus in on and creating a unique space from a physical perspective that allows them to come in and be a part of a community. That's something. So Oak Cliff, DeSoto, Lancaster, it's in the southern sector.
Football
country. We want to be able to open up the opportunity dialogue to the parents and the teachers, and just overall for a kid to see that they can be an aspiring, professional gamer or make money in this industry. Once you hear money, you for it. And I think that's one of the coolest communication tools that we can use in this area. Is like, here's opportunity, and ultimately we're looking to grow individual skill sets each and every day that we're here. So that's just a summation of everything.
So, Danny, I'm glad you brought that piece up, man, because, like I said before, I'm down here in Baton Rouge, and, I'm that beacon. I'm not as big as beacon as you, per se, in your community, but what is that conversation like for young African Americans and parents, where you're a heavy football culture, heavy basketball culture? Give us some insights on how you make that breakdown. You mentioned the money aspect. I know that works, but for me, you're in the market, an A-class market. I'm in a BC probably class market. What is that conversation like with families, man? Because I'm gonna tell you what I get a lot. I get what is esports exactly. So we have to start with the educational piece. So tell us a little bit about how you open that conversation and go forward.
Well, we do it from top down, right? So, there was one event that we had, and a lot of my staff didn't recognize it at first, what I was trying to do, and it was really like, all right, you get the mayor involved. You teach them what esports is. In one event we had all 4 mayors in this area, Duncanville, Cedar Hill, Lancaster, and DeSoto, into our esports arena here in DeSoto. and they were able to get on stage and play, and compete. So they got a perspective of what esports is, and they were like, oh, snap, this is what commentating, this is shoutcast, this is what production, this is pretty awesome to see all this. And they were able to compete amongst each other. So now it's city versus city. And so for them, now they can go back and say, wow, we need to get this in our particular city. How do we go about this? And then ultimately for a communication channel, it's, well, yeah, go talk to your administrators, the superintendents of the schools. Get them on board, and so and allow them to utilize the teachers who want to establish clubs and esports in the schools, and allow them to champion it. And then once they champion it, then they can champion it to the point to where the students will then listen, right? So the gamers, the students that may not be physically capable of being on the next being the next on of DeSoto or the next Errol Spence of DeSoto, they can really be able to say, I'm still competitive, but I want to be competitive in video games. I want to be competitive in esports. And so ultimately, I felt that it would take a lot longer to go from the bottom up than starting from the top and getting the attention from the public leaders and the people who can pull the strings much faster. And I figured that was the best route. So if we can have a facility where they all can come, then it'll be easy for the school systems to get all involved. That's how I particularly went around it, and I felt that was the biggest. That what made everything move much faster. Because now, once the mayor's involved, once the political figures, once the community, the parents will then start supporting it, because now they actually can see their kids learning communication and a skill set that can be applicable to the real world. Once you get all of those together, then tapping and showing the actual the students in this area, that makes it easier. The students are going to look at when they come into a space and they say, man, there's professional gamers actually on the wall, their jerseys are on the wall. We actually can see it, and when we walk in here, there's gamers competing, professional gamers in here competing. So that's enough for them. But the parents, as you stated, that's hard, So I figured if you go to a top-down approach, then it'll be much easier. There's more validity. They're looking at, us in esports is like we're young. What do they know about it? What do they know? But if they hear from a mayor or something, it's law.
Yeah, I totally get that aspect of it, man, and that's a nice approach, man. I never thought about it from that standpoint, and it worked for you, so I know it could work for other people, man. So you cover college, man. You cover that entrepreneurial spirit. You cover your approach in your community. At what point, man, that you decided to, hey, man, let's go all in with Geekletes and let's do this 15,000 plus square foot facility, and let's just hit a home run for the community, man.
Yeah, like for me, I'm super grassroots. Before I even mention anything about esports and just kind of like put myself out there, I spent more time in the actual communities like FGC, going to tournaments and events, and just asking questions and sitting back and just observing all the different communities. That's what was the biggest thing. It's just sitting back, observing, listening, engaging, being authentic, and then adding value where you see. It's like, man, I see this community, but what can I do to, help, add some value to it? Because that's ultimately how the ecosystems grow in esports. It's like you come into the industry and you say, man, I don't want to just take, but how can I be able to provide? And for, me, it was like, okay, well, you learn it, and I ultimately just converted my loft. I had a 2,000 square foot loft that, I lived in, and my bed and stuff was there. I just put my bed in the closet and turned the living room into a 5v5 battleground for esports. And at that point, I was just like, well, cool, I can just invite, from a head weight aspect, a cost, being very efficient in cost, I can just allow the community to come in there and to be able to compete and help use that as an opportunity to align the product in which we were creating and get some feedback, bringing tournament organizers inside of there, and then also gamers to be able to compete and just have fun. That was something that, was very critical to establish a real, minimum viable product at MVP. And so at that moment, if I wanted to go and say there's this platform, I want to go find investors. Investors, especially in that time, was like, well, you're around sports. what about League of Legends?